Welcome to today's edition of the CIO Watercooler TV. I am once again joined by Barbara Gottardi, who is the Chief Information Officer for Europe at Vanguard Asset Management Limited. Barbara, thank you for joining us again this morning. How are you?
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Really happy to have a second chat with you.
Now, look, if someone's watched the first, they'll kind of know the context in that you've just started a new job. You're 8 weeks into it. But for anyone who's not familiar, very quickly, what is your role at Vanguard?
I'm really new, 8 weeks into a role, and I've been hired to run the technology team in Europe with a view to leverage what Vanguard has done in the US, but grow and expand through Europe. So really exciting time.
Now, look, I asked that to place the conversation in some context very quickly, because this whole second episode is about changing jobs in the current circumstances, because that might be for some people really quite terrifying, because at one extreme you can say everything changes, and at the other extreme nothing changes. Your office, because it's at home, remains the same. So the job that you just described, why was that important to you? What was the draw that made you go, you know what, this is worth risking, moving from an organization where I've been for 16 years and things are safe and comfortable, and I'm going to push myself out there and do something wholly different and quite exposing?
So you actually made it sound like there was a simple decision and that was really obvious. And actually, as someone told me, it felt like I was going through job oppose. One morning was like, yeah, I'm ready to move. And one day, no, I'm not moving. What am I doing? And yes, quite a few people said, are you mad? Why would you move in this pandemic? Nobody does then. How do you do it? So it's been a intense and tough, process to get there. And I think I've used different methods. I start with a simple pros and cons paper to write down why and what's the pros and cons of a change. I've spoken to different people, and I found really good trusted advisor who didn't have their interest at heart, but just my interest, and knew me really well. And they said a few things that made me really realize that I just needed to put myself first for once. So the biggest and the toughest decision was to leave people behind. And I think if you work in an organization for 16 years like I have, and like global footprint, you don't just meet colleagues. I think you do meet friends, and you meet people that you care and you want to make sure they're okay when you leave. But at the same time, I think you need to be true to your value and also understand what's important for you and where you see yourself and what you want to do and make a difference. And I think that's what really made the decision for me. I think the organization came with clear mission that I loved, clear values, and a clear, exciting opportunity where I felt I could make the difference. And the obvious and the easiest decision was stay where you are, because you're going to be fine. And jumping, it's unknown and it's difficult. But I think so far I'm happy with the decision, and
just to jump in, you mentioned there about friends, and I think that's a really interesting thing, because most people would look at if they've worked at anywhere for a serious length of time, their colleagues are their friends. They're very much ingrained in their lives. What was important to you? Because you can have a very personal relationship with your manager, and there's often been that thing that people leave bad managers rather than anything else.
Yeah.
You're going into an environment where it is entirely remote. And so developing those relationships in the same way that you've previously had is going to be a lot harder. We can assess if someone is competent in this setting. It's far harder to build trust.
I think you're right. And I think that probably was one of my biggest questions. How do I've been in an environment for 16 years, and I have changed different roles, but wherever you go, your network stays with you and you're still within the same network. Going into the place where I kind of felt I lost that network, how am I going to build that? And how do you do that remotely? again, I think having had the opportunity to go to the office for a few days, I've actually been able to make some good connection to begin a relationship with, which then has helped the kind of video relationship. On the other side, I think everyone being on a video and working with people US based has actually leveled the playing field, because everyone is in video and everybody is in the same. So I'm trying to see the positive side of that. And trust, you said trust, and we talked about trust before. For me, it's fundamental, and I think I have to try and build it via video, and the same way I'm going to trust people, I'm hoping people will trust me.
Do you think though that people can mistake liking someone and personal rapport with trust, and actually they're very different disciplines, and trust can be built over a video call?
I think you're right. I think, and you can still like someone and not trust in them.
Yeah, true.
You can do that. But I think liking would be the first impression, and I think you can have nice conversation at the beginning. I think for me, and in the role I do, trust will come over time when you show you can actually deliver and not just having a nice conversation. And that's where I'm kind of trying to focus on. What are quick wins or things I can get done to kind of build the trust.
Just to delve a little bit more into why you felt you needed that change. Some people, when they're looking for a new job, the motivation is because they are not happy, or they're not fulfilled where they are, and therefore they think that change is going to give them that cathartic kind of experience where they do find something that's missing from their current role. Do you think that's something that people have got to be really careful of right now, not running away from a situation, but really having a positive catalyst for that change?
I think it's really important. So I think people really need to be clear. And I think that's why it was the hard decision for me at the beginning, is what am I looking for, and why I think I can get it where I am, or why do I think is different. And I've mentored a couple of people where they said they weren't happy with the job, or they had difficulties in explaining or talking to the line manager, and they wanted to do something else. And actually my first approach with them was always, you need to really try and expose and solve the problem where you are. And if that's having a difficult conversation with your line manager, then I'm here and we can do some role play and we can start and try that conversation. And I felt, especially in a couple of examples that I have done, is then these people came to me and say, I've now have the confidence that I can have this conversation, and I realized that's not the role for me and I'm ready to move on. But I feel if they just moved on because they couldn't have a difficult conversation, they would have just run away from something and then be unhappy in the next step because not believing themselves. So I think you do need to be very clear why you're doing the decision and what you're looking for. So then you don't keep moving because you're never going to be satisfied.
One last thing then, a takeaway for the audience watching. You've gone through this experience. I think an increasing amount of people will go through this experience because, let's face it, it's not the 3 or 4 weeks thing that maybe some of us naively thought at the beginning. This is a fundamental change in the way that people work. What is one thing that you think has really helped you make that change?
My husband's support has been one. And I think the conversation I've had with a couple of friends, colleagues that know me really well, and I kind of understood what I was going through, what I was looking for, and they've said a couple of things that resonated with me. And then I woke up one morning and I said, I've made the decision, and I felt that was the right decision.
Absolutely. Look, Barbara, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
If you've enjoyed this episode of CIO Watercooler TV, maybe you haven't seen Barbara's first episode, please do go to the website, have an explore. There's plenty more content. Do share it, comment on it, and enjoy the rest of your day.